Welcome back to the channel. We're going over Micron, which just reported some of the best earnings that we've maybe ever seen when it comes to the stock market. We saw NVIDIA around 2 years ago, really impressed, and everyone said it was a bubble. But what Micron is doing is arguably more impressive. They reported $40 billion plus in revenue, which in itself is incredible. They guided up to $50 billion, which shows and basically confirms the bullish thesis on the stock. In the after hours, you're pushing back into all-time highs around 12.15 currently, and it looks like the market's going to get a lot of love from this. Now, we're going to go into the best stocks that are going to be following. We've kept you up to date on those, but again, with this earnings, it's also confirming the thesis behind those names. And then we'll also go into where's Micron going and where are our targets there and what needs to happen for yourself so you understand and you're not confused or lost in these trading sessions. Let's get to work, okay? So when we're jumping into this, a few things to understand and I want to highlight first is this is Micron over the past, basically going into like April into May, right? April, I mean, really like you bottomed out April 1st, but really good so far, right? Highlighting the number one, higher highs, higher lows, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. Obviously about to make another higher high, which we posted on Twitter earlier today. Very impressive. Now we'll spend time on the charts and we'll go into the opportunities in the charts, but I also want to make sure we're focused on the fundamentals here, okay? And what Micron did, it basically said, look, we didn't just beat earnings, but we're resetting what's happening in the AI trade. This is number one, clean confirmation. And it's also showing that AI is not just a GPU trade. And it's showing based off of numbers, which we always like to go back to. That's why software is getting hit, is because the revenue doesn't justify what's happening right now with AI and AI spend. And then there's the fear of businesses getting like replaced. Well, Micron is going in the viewpoint of, well, we can't be a bubble if we're just printing money and if we're growing faster than any other company out there. So Micron gives us the beat. They guide higher. Their margins are more impressive, which we'll go into, but they grew, they got better, okay? And then the free cash flow is an absolute explosion. It's the trifecta of what you needed to see. And so we have this thesis going into this as, yes, it's a bottleneck stock, but it's also, it might be the leader. It might be replacing where NVIDIA is right now. Because if you don't know, NVIDIA is getting, and I'm not saying replacing them from their whole business, but I'm saying being that dominant force at the top of the pyramid. And when you look at what's happening right now, you know, Micron even gave an example of this is just the beginning. You know, they went into a whole nother sector, which we'll cover a little bit in here, of physical AI and robotics and what's happening there. They're going to be using over 5x the amount of memory in each one of those devices once those are, you know, ready to launch. So Micron provided a great outlook. They did everything we needed them to do and more, to be totally honest. Major surprise on earnings. So this quarter, going over the earnings, revenue, the expectation was around 35 billion, massive beat at 41.5. Non-GAAP EPS, again, free cash flow explosion. Your gross margins, yes, your gross margins here, guys. I honestly couldn't believe it. Roughly 85% gross margins. I didn't think it was possible for a company to have more impressive margins than NVIDIA. I didn't think so. Operating margins around 81%. Adjusted free cash flow on the quarter, 18.3 billion. Simply put, the read is pure acceleration. They're seeing around 4x growth on the revenue year over year. So again, there's not too much to complicate. There's not too much to talk too much about. And they're guiding up from 41 billion to 50 billion, and they'll likely surpass that. Okay. Why does this matter? AI is no longer solely focused on GPUs like we mentioned, okay? The bottleneck is widening, and that focus is going to be HBMs, DRAM, server modules, enterprise SSD, high capacity storage, and the equipment needed to build more supply. And this is what I really am focused on for you guys, this last little part of the sentence. The equipment needed to build more supply. Because let me tell you, that is the dark horse if there is one. I still think Micron's a monster. It's 1,500, yeah, is our target in the short term. This is likely running towards $2,000. I'm just saying. Right now, I believe their valuation is 35x their forward-looking guidance. Insanity. What a deal. Okay. Production proof. The strength is broader than one HBM headline, which is kind of what we talked about. And why is that important? This is where things get really interesting. So the HBM hype was huge. Like we talked about it, the demand is sold out for 2026, but now we're going into 2027. And what I was talking about is we want to see, will the demand roll over? Will we start to see sellouts start for there? Will we see more new production of their newer models and what's happening there? Well, we are. Okay. So again, obviously, HBM4s are shipping, high volume shipments, lead customer the customer platform, dominating, okay? But they're about to start developing their HBM4E. Again, production should start early 2027. Why is that important, okay? If the strength were only one product, the sympathy trade it would be pretty narrow, right? But since it's broad, it's going out very far. So it's basically everything they have is selling fantastic. So when we talked about yesterday or the day before with SNDK and the sympathy plays, but they don't provide as good as products necessarily as Micron. Micron has, more elite products, okay? Like their HBM4, HBM4E, they're pushing those out at a way better pace, okay? But overall, they're still killing it across the board. So you're going to see an immediate follow on stocks like SNDK, which are already up in the after hours more, right? Again, SNDK 1900 to 2150, WDC in the after hours 640 into 725, trying to get back into all-time highs. Okay, so again, you're seeing those names follow. Now, again, I wouldn't fall in love with them. Micron's a better name overall, but you're seeing that happen. And then it goes out into the names we really like. LRCX, right? The tools, right? These are the two companies that make the tools to make these products. LRCX, Applied Materials, AMAT. Those are two of your big boys. CLAC, like we went to, is basically like oversight on these. But again, still very important. So seeing the broad strength was definitely something that I wanted to see. And I make sure when I make these videos that I'm not like, again, like I said, I was very, I would have been shocked if Micron missed, right? Now, did they have blowout earnings? Yes. Like better than you could have imagined? Yes. But I try to not push an agenda. I try not to say, well, you have to beat, or this is, because I don't want people to start FOMOing and getting crazy. Like I never trade earnings. Like unless I have stock or leaps, I don't trade earnings. So I want people to be in a safe position, and I never want people to get mad at me if something goes bad or something gets shocked or surprised. Okay. So again, the stock has one job: reclaim our all-time high zone. So these are your levels you're going to be watching. Okay. Really right now, you're going to be watching this 1200 to 1215. That's your prior all-time high. Above that, we're looking towards 1300 with ease. That could happen quick. You're also likely going to see some sort of gamma squeeze as well with all these options. You saw people hedging on the put side. Again, things went fantastic. It's also worth mentioning on the day, something like SPY and QQQ were getting hammered on the past 2 to 3 days. Okay, that's SPY, QQQ, equally on the downside, getting hammered. And you're seeing this complete recovery just from Micron's earnings. From 710 at close today to back at 724, likely going to try to fill the gap tomorrow, which is insane, right? Already up 2% in the after hours. Monstrous, right? And I'm not trying to hype it up. I'm just telling you the facts of where you're at and kind of what's going on there for you, okay? But once you start breaking above and then you're looking towards 1400 and obviously into 1500, if you break down support around 1035, 1050, we'll see it's kind of where we ended up today. So we'll see what happens there, okay? So big levels of what you're watching overall. Now, who follows? Like we said, the first names that are following, which again, they were more the sympathy plays if you wanted to trade earnings, right? SNDK, WDC, STX. I'm not a big fan of them, but still out there, okay? This is the follow-up that I like the most, though. The second part, the equipment. What does it take to build those names? LRCX, AMAT, CLAK or CLAC, and then ASML. ASML, like I've said, is one of your biggest sleepers. It really is. They are essentially a monopoly. Okay. Now, number one, in the after hours, you love to see this so far. Okay. You're at 1860. Your gap fill is at 1890. This should be at $2,000 already. So if the market really does retain strength and we get any sort of continuation, I do believe ASML can get into 2K and probably runs even further. It's also worth mentioning when you look at this stock, it's arguably been more consistently impressive than a lot of these other names. Like, you're only going up. There is really no pullback. Your pullback from February into like the middle of March was like 1,500 down to like 1,200. A drop in the bucket, a 10% pullback compared to the other names, nothing. So again, showing you the relative strength. If you ever get a pullback into your 100 or 200, it's a massive buying opportunity. But again, big player out there. Now, your third tier of what you're looking at is going to be your AI racks, CRD, and these are the components that go in there for connectivity, CRDO, ALAB, MRVL, VRT for cooling. You could also go into some of the rack names like DELL, who actually build out these racks. SMCI is a big name out there. But again, I want to give you guys a heads up on SMCI. When you go into your levels here, it's very, very simple. You can not get bullish until you're above 36, 35 point like 9, give or take. You can actually see that we just rejected there once again off that level. I've also been talking about this a lot on Twitter. So if you follow me on there, I try to keep you guys up to date in all the levels. Just search whatever ticker, go to latest. And again, it's going to be at the very top. So again, it's right there for you. Again, it was all literally up there. So again, SMCI, what we've been covering, again, be patient over 35.5 before your last breakout like we talked about there. So again, what and why we're looking at those names. And then your other side is the overall signals for the follow, right? These are your leaders in the semiconductor sector. NVIDIA by market cap, NVIDIA, AMD, AVGO, Oracle. Oracle is getting hammered. Oracle mainly goes into the data center aspect of this, which has been getting hammered. One of our better short opportunities we talked about. You came down to our key level around 155, but also into 165. You should start finding some buying on some of these data center names. They've been getting hit as of recent, back down to your big supports. Iron's been another big name getting hit. I need to make a video going over the data centers and the opportunities out there. But again, what and where you're at there, okay? So make sure you're paying attention to those, and ultimately still some big opportunities. Now, again, I will say these right here are more of the fundamentals. This is where great fundamentals meet the trading, okay? Of understanding what's actually happening in this development process and how important Micron's earnings were, right? Again, Micron's earnings, yes, they make a shit ton of money. Yes, they're going to keep making a shit ton of money. Yes, we all know that. Fundamentals are great. But it also solidifies the AI narrative. So everyone the market is kind of waiting, in my opinion, waiting for there to be a signal of the bubble, right? And in the sense of the capex is slowing, the spend is slowing, the money is drying up, and it's not doing that. Micron's earnings prove the opposite. It actually shows that we're in another like stage 2 of what happened previously with NVIDIA, which is why I keep going back to that, because it was something that people thought could never happen, and it's happening again, okay? So the bear case is not dead. It just got harder to play out, okay? Which we've definitely gone over, warning signs, things to look for, things to watch out for, etc., okay? Worst case scenario here is you reject at all-time highs into tomorrow and you get some sort of bad news. I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see. So if you start rejecting off of 1200, 1215, I think this impacts the entire market, not just one thing. Risk number 2 is the fact that our margins peaked. Are our margins on Micron, like, how much better can they get? Because they have to top out, right? Like, NVIDIA's margins, and if you remember, you were like at 81% and you dropped down to 77, 76%, and it started dipping pretty aggressively for a while. And then margins got back up and it soared back up, right? But margins can't could they get to 90%? In theory, anything's possible, but it's unlikely. So number 1 is what happens when margins just stick, right? Because the market wants to, and that's how it's working with AI and how it has worked is, again, you'll keep moving up as long as you keep guiding out of this world and you can somehow beat expectations, which, again, I will say expectations were very high for Micron, okay? Risk 3 is your cost pressure. Higher memory prices validate demand, but put pressure on server builders and AI cost curves. What does that mean? This is one of the biggest issues out there and one of the biggest concerns is you're seeing companies have to slow down on AI spend and using AI because some of the costs are just too high. So yes, the cost and the ability of Micron to squeeze out higher prices due to demand is good, but at what price does it become, hey, this is an issue and it makes data centers essentially unprofitable, right? That's a major, major concern because yeah, it's good that they can have margins at 85%. That's awesome. It's great news. But on the other side, it's impacting someone else in a negative sense. That's the point where, like, are we able to charge a good price and then the customer make money off this? Where are we at? And that's the sticky spot. And I think these two things are going to have a reality check eventually. Fortunately for us, I don't think we're there now. But again, you're going to eventually have to have a talk. And that's why you're seeing these companies starting to dilute or taking out debt, or not taking out debt, but doing bond sales or doing offerings, et cetera, because I think they're anticipating these costs and they're trying to get in while they can. Okay, so again, where we're at there. Now, the bullish thesis is confirmed. The tape still has to prove it based off just the price and getting more higher value in the stock price. But overall, you look great. Some of the best names right now, obviously SNDK is the best name to follow, but LRCX, AMAT, ASML, KLAC are probably my top 4 fundamental plays to follow, and I would be keeping your eye out there, okay? Want to make sure we understand what and why, okay? Now, again, let's quickly go through some of these names. Number 1, ASML. Again, you're already gapping up. You look really solid. You look phenomenal. There's no real question about it, okay? We'll actually bring in extended hours here as well. Go to the 1 hour so you can see where you're at. So again, if we open up above 1850, you're looking for that gap fill into 1920. Conservative, 1890. But again, you have a lot of room back to the upside. It's a beast. It's an absolute monster, okay? AMAT, LRCX, very similar names here. Again, AMAT here in the after hours, you basically, just skyrocketed back towards the gap fill, and you're looking for price discovery. Again, incredible run. And like, I think Micron's had a good run. I'm not hating on it, but like, these charts are even more bullish. AMAT and LRCX. And it's funny because they don't get the same hype. They don't. They go like under the radar. They're not as sexy. They're not as great. And like, or they're not as great in the idea that you're going to double your money on stock in 2 months, right? But again, they're just great performers and they're benefiting all in the back of this, right? It's like I always say, you're looking at the gold rush, and this gold rush is lasting a lot longer than anyone expected, right? But the other thing to think about is who are selling the tools, right? We know some of these gold mines are going to be successful. Micron, NVDA look like the big gold mines, right? And then I would say the next area of chips, which I need to make another video on, is going to be Marvel, AVGO. AVGO, solid deals lately, okay? But these names are just solid. Like, I don't want to say there's zero risk because nothing's zero risk, but they're in a position to where they have very minimal risk compared to everything else, right? Because if Micron's getting these orders, people are paying Micron. Micron has to use, they already have like infinite free cash flow, right? Not infinite, but they have a crap ton, right? But they have to spend it on these products to develop and get those products pushed out. So again, what and why? ASML, we went into it as well, and then CLAK or CLAC. I always want to say CLAK. But again, what and why? And again, it's just such a monster. And then here in the after hours, this might be one of your best sleepers. Closed at 240, sitting at 254, going into tomorrow. If you stay flat, again, you have room towards 270, 267 back in all-time highs. It just had a split, but still absolutely love it. Very strong gap fill up there. And I think honestly can get towards 300. So like, I think you're selling yourself short, just looking short-sighted, but these names still look really good. How I would approach this as far as options, going to give you my 2 cents. It's a little expensive, but do what you want to do. So what I would be looking at and what I'm going to be looking at is number 1, getting some time on some contracts, the ones that I like the most as far as stock, and I'll mention it in Discord, Twitter, etc. I need to look more at the options and see what's the value, and especially into tomorrow. But then also getting some shorter dated contracts that I like as well. So the goal is going to be number 1, if we get our ideal move in the short term back into all-time highs, the shorter term contracts, a month out, month and a half out, we take those profits and we use those profits to let the leaps, however long out we buy, 6 months, 5 months, whatever, not even a leap, right? But just to actually capture that move towards new all-time highs. That's my visual. That's what I'm looking at. I think that's the way this is going to have to be played. And I do think if there's an area where you can get aggressive right now in the market, this is it. Again, I cannot put enough emphasis on how strong this earnings was. There's not too much comparable. Okay. And I think it's important that you go back and you look at something like NVIDIA. Okay. And, just let's get rid of all the drawings. Let's get rid of everything so it's clear and clean. Okay. NVIDIA has had impressive earnings from 2023, great growth, right? Let's use from here, okay? 13 bill, 18 bill, 22, 26, 30, great growth, steady, consistent growth. Again, Micron is, it is quote unquote, as the youngsters say, it is stunting on these hosts, right? That's what the youngins are saying nowadays, right? 11 bill, okay, 13 bill, 24 bill, oh wow, 41 bill, and then now expecting, again, it's not 43 bill, they're going to revise it, it's 50 bill now. Absurd. Absolutely absurd where we're at and ultimately where we're heading. So keep your head on a swivel. Very bullish on Micron. When I made the last video saying you have 50% upside, dude, I wasn't joking. And this sector is very, very hot. Be careful getting crazy, making YOLOs. But again, what I like the best, what I'm looking at, and ultimately how I'm looking to take advantage of this opportunity. Like, subscribe, do what you got to do.